Welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones, and we're so glad to have you here. Between 2010 and 2024, our state has seen an increase in extreme weather disasters, racking up $100 billion in damages. From rising sea levels to intensified hurricanes, many experts say climate change is taking a toll on New Jersey's economy and safety. Standing by is Jesse Lee, former senior communications advisor to the National Economic Council, to unpack how climate change is affecting our state and the nation. First, though, we are focusing on a critical issue impacting seniors across New Jersey: fraud. With scams becoming more and more sophisticated, AARP New Jersey is stepping up to educate and protect our communities. Their upcoming Fraud Summit will tackle the latest threats, including the role of artificial intelligence in scams. Joining us now is Chris Widelo, AARP New Jersey State Director, to discuss this vital event, the growing fraud challenges facing seniors, and also a special milestone for Social Security. Chris, thanks for being here. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So AARP New Jersey's upcoming Fraud Summit, it's called Decoded: How AI is Changing Fraud. That's set for September 16th in Edison. So can you tell us a little bit about what those attending can expect and why the focus on AI is so important for seniors today?
Sure. Our fraud conference is an annual event, and we each year tackle really what we think is an emerging issue in the area of fraud. And so this year we're focused on artificial intelligence, otherwise known as AI, and the role that that plays now in a lot of the scams, which are crimes that are perpetrated, and often older adults are victims of fraud at a much higher rate than their younger counterparts. But certainly AI is everywhere, and we are seeing such an uptick in how it is being used to in scams and different fraud schemes, that we feel like it's time that we really take this on head on and talk about what's going on and what people need to do and how they can protect themselves.
Yeah. Well, a recent AARP study noted that 4 in 10 Americans, including many seniors, they've been impacted by fraud. And you mentioned seniors way more so than the rest of the population. And in New Jersey, your Fraud Watch network received over 350 calls in 2024 from victims, and they are losing an average of $38,000 each. That's incredible. So can you talk a little bit about the common scams that are targeting seniors in the states, and what's making them so vulnerable?
Yes. This is a lucrative business for scammers. This is, again, these are crimes, and it's costing Americans, billions of dollars every year. And our Fraud Watch network is a great resource for people to talk to someone live that can give them some advice, and also maybe just like a shoulder a friendly shoulder that they can share their experience with, because often people are embarrassed when this happens, and they really shouldn't be, because if this happened on the street or just happened face to face, we wouldn't think twice. But because people often feel that they've been taken advantage of, and they should have been maybe more savvy. You see a lot of scams that are specifically focused on older adults. Microsoft scam where your computer is not working is obviously one that's been around for a while. Romance scams, often people find themselves maybe a little lonely or looking for some type of connection, and so they can get taken advantage of that way. But now, even with especially with the emergence of AI, we are seeing really sophisticated things where people's, who are in their family, their voices are being used, or, there are certain ways that, information is being manipulated to make it really feel authentic when it is in fact a scam. And so the more we can educate people on what to look for and what to be aware of, will help people avoid these scams, which are just becoming more and more sophisticated every year.
And I want to talk a little bit more about, you're saying a lot of people are embarrassed, seniors, anyone. But make no mistake, these people who are committing these crimes, they're professionals. This is what they do. So can you talk a little bit about how you're trying to break that stigma of being
Yes.
embarrassed and getting caught in a scam? Because it can happen to anybody, no matter the age, no matter how smart, savvy, especially if you've got an AI, mimicking your grandchild's voice or something. You're going to think, oh gosh, somebody needs me. Oh, somebody got, pulled over, or they got arrested. Oh, you need money? Let me help.
Exactly. We need to make sure that this isn't, the stigmatism that somehow you didn't, you weren't smart enough or you're easily fooled is, uh, we need to make sure people do not feel that way. And so we talk about it a lot. We make sure that people understand that this can happen to everyone. And again, if this happened on the street where somebody took your money, we would not feel the least bit embarrassed to, report it and try to get that wallet back or whatever was taken. But somehow, because it happens behind a computer or over the phone or through text, the assumption is that we weren't smart enough to, or we're not as savvy as some people are. That is not the case. This is sophisticated. They spend a lot of time coming up with these scams and working them through so they become seamless, so they feel so real. And when it happens, we need to make sure that people understand that they need to report. And that's partially what the Fraud Watch Network does, is to help people make sense of this crime and what has taken place, and to reassure them that this is not their fault, that this is a criminal that has honed their skills to be able to take advantage of someone, and then what you need to do by filing a police report. Even though it may seem pointless, it is the first step. And then also what other resources may be available to you to follow up on this, because if this scammer is caught, they can hopefully there might be some way to get some restitution. But we just can't stress enough, and that's part of what this day is about, to inform people that the technology has become so advanced, and that even criminals, scammers are using it to advance these crimes.
Yeah.
And we have to do as much as we can to try to avoid it. But often it's not avoidable. Someone's going to become a victim of a scam at one point or another. So what do you do then? And how do you report it? And what options are available to you? And the resources that AARP has.
Well, let's talk a little bit about it, because at the Fraud Summit, you're going to be providing tools to help fight fraud. So can you talk a little bit about some of the practical steps seniors and their families can take, not only to protect themselves, especially in today's digital world, but what happens if you are? Because, I could see my own parents saying, okay, well, something happened, can't get this back, can't fix it, I'm not going to give it any more energy, when it really is important to report it, so not only protect, to prevent, but if it does happen, what steps to take. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I think that's really important. So, I think part of it is making sure that, right, that when something seems too good to be true, or sensitive information or financial transactions are being requested through email or over the internet, and people are seeking you out, right? So they're pushing the information to you. That should be a red flag immediately, right? We do a lot of things online, and we know the trusted websites that we typically go to. So if it's being requested of us, we should be really skeptical of it right from the start. And it's really great if you could talk to somebody else. If you have someone in your life, they'll kind of bounce it off of. Well, the first thing to do is to cut off any communication that you're having, right? You don't want to continue to have an interaction with someone or a scammer that is engaging you. And the second thing is, you should file a police report immediately. That is the first step. And even if the police department says, oh, it's probably not going to go anywhere, insist that you file the police report, because that is the record that a crime took place. And then I would recommend that folks get in touch with our Fraud Watch Network through aarp.org, Fraud Watch Network, /Fraud Watch Network. And we have trained volunteers that are trained in what to do in the aftermath of a scam, and for people who are victims, to educate them as to what steps they can take, other places they may need to go to file a complaint, and also, some light counseling to help folks through this traumatic experience.
Yeah, and it is traumatic. It's upsetting. It's embarrassing. It financially, you could have been drained. Your information, identity could have been compromised. It's interesting that there might even be people in law enforcement who say it really isn't going to do anything. But every single point about documenting, it's just helping build a stronger case.
Yes, it is. And in some cases, it may not help you, but it could help somebody else down the road, because you're not the only person that these scammers are targeting. So if we are filing the reports and following up with resources like the Fraud Watch Network, maybe for someone, if not you, they will be able to catch up to these criminals. And if there's some restitution, maybe you'll be part of that. But I think we have to treat it as a crime because it is a crime, and report it in the same way we would do if this happened face to face, and break the stigma of somehow that this is different and it doesn't follow the same rules. It's awful that people are being preyed on in general, and now again with the emerging technology and AI the way it is, things can appear, these deep fakes can appear to be very real, and they're not. And so we have to do what we can. AARP wants to do what we can to help educate the public as to what to look out for, and just to build additional awareness, and also next steps if you find yourself in this unfortunate situation.
So there's always someone at AARP New Jersey. Pick up the phone, call, or check out the website. If nothing else, you're going to get information on the steps that you can take, and that can be empowering, just that alone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I also want to talk about this year marks the 90th anniversary of Social Security, and AARP released recently a survey showing a growing importance to Americans. So can you talk a little bit about how AARP New Jersey is celebrating this milestone and what it means for seniors here in the state of New Jersey?
We celebrated AARP's we celebrated its 90th anniversary, a rock solid program for over 90 years for people who have contributed to Social Security while they've been working. It's a benefit that people retire. And so we want to make sure that we recognize of this program, the lives of Americans, but also people here in New Jersey. It is a key piece of their retirement security. And without it, they would otherwise be in poverty. So we want to make sure that Social Security remains strong for future generations. So we're celebrating across the state. We just wrapped up some ice cream socials where we brought an ice cream truck to celebrate and have a little sweet, cool off in the summer with some great ice cream. But really, it's an opportunity to just recognize what this program means for millions of Americans.
Chris Widelo, thank you so much for taking the time and for all you're doing, your advocacy for seniors. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Between 2010 and 2024, our state has seen an increase in extreme weather disasters, racking up $100 billion in damages. We're joined by Jesse Lee, former senior communications advisor to the National Economic Council, to unpack how climate change is affecting our state and the nation and what can be done about it. Jesse, good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
That number is staggering. New Jersey's seen $100 billion in damages from extreme weather scenarios since 2010. Hurricane-related losses significantly worsened by climate change. So how much is this a New Jersey-specific issue versus broader national issue? And what makes our state particularly vulnerable?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's a national issue in the sense that every state seems to have some kind of extreme weather crisis that is damaging them in their own way. Obviously New Jersey's coastline makes you uniquely vulnerable to major storms. But in the Southwest, they're dealing with 120-degree heat. And all of this stuff has all kinds of mounting costs. You look at North Carolina, it's becoming a housing crisis because nobody can afford home insurance, for example. You guys just saw, another big utility rate hike in the offing. That's happening all over the country, especially with data centers and AI coming in and demanding more energy as well. In addition to, more and more electricity needed to deal with, air conditioning, et cetera, et cetera. All of these costs just mount more and more and more on families. And, while New Jersey's been hit particularly hard, so have a lot of states, and it needs a national answer.
Yeah. Well, again, we're seeing rising costs from climate-driven disasters, $670 million, 1.3, and additional losses from hurricanes in New Jersey alone. So can you talk about what's driving, not the weather, the escalating impacts, and what concrete steps lawmakers, policymakers can take to address this growing crisis?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the impacts. The truth is, no building that was being built 50 years ago was built to withstand these kind of storms, right? So, this question of resiliency is one that, uh, actually played a fairly big role in the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed under President Biden, and unfortunately, even though it was passed on the bipartisan basis, the Trump administration is trying to kind of pull the plug on that because there's some sense of any mention of climate change, even if it's resilience to its impacts, is somehow deemed as, I don't know, woke or whatever the word is. The bigger question, of course, is, you know, what are you going to do about energy? And we're now at a point where you don't need renewable energies just to mitigate climate change. You need them just to meet basic utility needs, just to keep up with this escalating demand from, like I say, AI and data centers. And so, you absolutely need a real national policy. Trump has declared an energy emergency, even though at the same time he's trying to crush wind and solar and batteries and these other sources. And what you need is a real energy emergency that says we need energy however we can get it. That might be nuclear in some cases, especially in New Jersey. That's, especially a kind of medium to long term solution. But the only energy sources that can kind of get scaled up quickly enough to keep up with demand and keep, utility rates from skyrocketing year after year are things like wind and solar and batteries.
Yeah, what do you say to those who argue that increasing natural gas and oil production could stabilize energy costs and reduce economic strain? Can leaning more heavily on the fossil fuels help solve the problem, or do you think it risks making things worse when it comes to the context of climate change?
I say the problem is there's just not much more you can do right now. If you wanted to build a new natural gas plant, there's a 7-year wait time on natural gas turbines. And so that help's not coming anytime soon. And there's just a limit on it right now. I mean, when you're talking about this escalating demand, you're talking about total energy demand, maybe doubling over the next 10, 20 years. There's no way that natural gas can keep up with that. But when you're talking about, wind and solar, these, you can make as many solar panels as you want if you kind of build industry here in America. But you have to have that. And so, the only thing, you can build a new solar field or a new, wind farm in a year and a half. So you can start to plug that in very aggressively. And it will take some amount of communities saying, okay, this is actually, something we all need, and we're willing to maybe put aside some land for it, et cetera, et cetera. But again, nothing compared to the impacts of climate change that you're talking about, nothing compared even to, the air pollution impacts of, smokestacks on children having asthma, that sort of thing.
Yeah. For people who are watching, we have tens of thousands of homes that are at risk for flooding. And, you're talking about, even if, this project, solar, a year and a half, we're in hurricane season now. We've been seeing, these afternoon storms creating a deluge in certain areas in New Jersey. So what practical steps can people take to protect themselves, to protect their homes, and really, help not just in the here and now, but also, looking at the bigger picture when it does come to climate change?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And, I think you're going to see a bigger and bigger, industry for weatherization of homes. And I think this is the kind of thing where you can, it's a little bit painful and it makes you grimace to spend a little bit of the money up front. but you're sure going to be glad when, you don't have to replace your entire basement at some point. And, I'll say also, on this kind of home energy front, which is part of the weatherization process, getting, efficient, heat pumps, which can heat or cool your house, other kind of weatherization, uh, upgrades that you can make, energy efficiency upgrades. There are tax credits that you can get at the federal level that will help save you thousands of dollars on that. And unfortunately, those got killed in the Republican budget bill that just passed, but they're around till the end of the year. You can still get them. So now is actually a great time to go ahead and make that upfront investment, and you'll be saving money on your utility bills for the next 20 years.
I think a lot of people, they do want to do the right thing, but it's that here and now. Spend a little now and it will save you in the long term. But a lot of times people don't have that extra because they're not afraid, they're not able to, provide for the basic necessities. And like, as you mentioned, our regular energy costs have gone up 20%. Everything just continues to rise. So how do you help people who want to do that, but they just don't have the money to do so?
Yeah, no, that's that is. There's no question. There's just a crushing affordability crisis, all across this country. Anybody you talk to, it'll be the first thing they say. And the only thing I can say is, for example, that heat pump tax credit, that's $2,500 off. That's a pretty big savings to help you with that upfront cost. And really kind of, I grew up with my mom, cutting coupons. This is the same kind of thing. Look around. There's state level incentives. There's federal incentives. Go ahead and grab those up. You'll be surprised, how much of that upfront cost they knock out. And, the same goes for solar panels. If you've ever entertained getting those on your roof, you can get tax credits for that till the end of the year. And again, you might find your utility bills go to zero for a good portion of the year after that.
Yeah, a lot of times, you'll get the calls from a solar company, hey, we have a deal. And sometimes it sounds too good to be true. So where can people go to find out solid information, factual information of, yes, actually, this really isn't too good to be true? Or, if somebody's trying to sell you this, you might want to be cautious. Is there a place where you would recommend people go to start doing their research so that they know what they're doing is legitimate? They know that, yes, we really are going to be able to save X amount of dollars, and this investment is something that is going to pay off dividends.
Yeah, I mean, my bet is that in most cases, even just doing a quick Google of that company will give you a pretty instant result. If they don't, then I would try the New Jersey government and the kind of energy department there, because actually they will be keeping a log of the companies that are engaged in scams versus the ones that have been accredited. So, like I say, my guess is you'll be able to find out pretty quickly from the internet. But if you need to, the state government is your best bet.
One other thing I wanted to follow up on, you were mentioning how AI and data centers are contributing to this drain. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because, with the rise of AI, is this specific to New Jersey or just across the country?
Oh, it's really across the country, but what we saw in even the most recent utility auction that does affect New Jersey specifically was that, by all accounts, and by actually meticulous study, the dramatic increase in electricity demand that was driving these rates higher was coming from data centers and AI. And that's been a pretty, exponential growth industry over the past few years, but it's really just getting started. And, some states have more than others. Most states are kind of aggressively recruiting these data centers as a source of economic activity and jobs. But with that comes a lot of power demand. And, if our country does not start producing the amount of energy that is proportionate to the amount of demand that we know is going to increase, because right now, every state, the federal government is pushing for, rapid AI as fast as it can be. If there's not an equal push for, the renewable energy, which, as we discussed, is the only kind that can get online at that same pace, if there's not an equal push for that, then what's going to happen is electricity prices are going to go through the roof for everybody. And the giant tech companies can afford that. They're still going to do it, but it's going to drive everybody is going to be paying those higher rates. So all of us are going to get stuck with the bill. And there's a world where AI is a huge benefit to people, but if the government is not doing smart things for energy demand, and frankly, to make sure there are just kind of some common sense safeguards, it could have a lot of downsides.
Jesse Lee, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And that'll do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.